United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson
was shot and killed in Midtown Manhattan early this morning.
This does not appear to be a random act of violence.
It's definitely a targeted murder. Everything screams it.
Shell casings with the words deny, defend, and depose written on them.
There is an ongoing manhunt for that shooter right now.
Our hearts are broken and we are completely devastated by this news.
We do not care.
So this past week, a lot of things have been coming out. More details are getting put out to light about the killing of the CEO, but the general public still remains and doubles down on their opinion that they don't really give a fuck about this guy. I'm gonna be honest, that's really mean, but that's the loudest and the very first opinion that everybody spoke when this news came out.
But this killing has generated a very different reaction from some on the internet. Just take a look at some of these comments found under a CNN video about this story online.
What we already know is that the killer is definitely somebody who has a grudge against the company, because even the 3 bullet casings had like a little cryptic message for the police at least to find, with the words depose, deny, and defend. That's basically a book on how insurance companies avoid to pay claims. And it's also a practice that insurance companies use to avoid paying claims. And this also ties in with the fact that United Healthcare has the highest rate of denied claims in the entire country, at least by 32%. And not only that, but last year in 2023, they had an increase in profit of 14.6%. That's estimated to be between 47 billion and 370 billion. Between there. And I even checked myself, and I found articles talking about how they managed to ease the worrying of their investors when they reported a solid year. I also checked their stock, and as of now, stock is going down by at least 10%. Before the killer even ended up getting caught at a McDonald's, he was leaving the police clues, like Blue's Clues, and inside of his backpack, they found a Tommy Hilfiger jacket and Monopoly money. I personally didn't see the meaning behind that message, but apparently Blue Anthem did, because they are now deciding to not go forward with their policy change. So if Blue Anthem ever did go through with their policy change, it would be f***ing over a lot of people, because what would basically happen is that if you're under their care and you need anesthesia, they're going to give you a time limit of what they're going to cover. And if you go over a set time limit, regardless of how long your procedure or surgery is going to take, they're no longer going to reimburse you, so that'll have to come out of your pocket. As I was doing some research, I ended up finding an article that the American Society of Anesthesiologists posted on the 14th of November. And they're basically summing up what everybody else is thinking based off the policy change. Right here, first paragraph reads, "In an unprecedented move, Blue Anthem Cross Blue Shield plans to represent Connecticut, New York, Missouri have unilaterally declared that it will no longer pay for anesthesia care if surgery or procedure goes beyond an arbitrary time limit, regardless of how long the surgical procedure takes. The American Society of Anesthesiologists calls on an Anthem to reverse this proposal immediately." Now here, just by clicking on the highlighted part, you get the letter that the anesthesiologist literally wrote to the people in charge of this policy change. We're going to look at that later, but second paragraph reads, "Anesthesiologists provide individual care to every patient, careful assessing the patient's health to prior surgery, looking at existing diseases and medical conditions to determine the resources and medical expertise needed, attending to the patient during the entire procedure, resolving unexpected complications that may arise or extend the duration of the surgery, and working to ensure that the patient is comfortable during recovery." So just in other words, anesthesiologists aren't really just people that get you high off laughing gas. They actually have to take care of you before, during, and as you're recovering. They also have to make sure that they're paying attention to every single detail just to find if there is going to be any complications or extending the surgery. So you really don't know what's going to happen as an anesthesiologist. Third paragraph reads, "Payment for anesthesia services is based on several factors, including the amount of time for anesthesiologists to deliver care preoperatively, during the operation, and when transitioning patient to recovery unit afterwards. With this new policy, Anthem will arbitrarily predetermine the time allowed for anesthesia care during a surgery or procedure. If an anesthesiologist submits a bill where the actual time of care is longer than Anthem's limit, Anthem will deny payment for the anesthesiologist's care. With this new policy, Anthem will not pay anesthesiologists for delivering a safe and effective anesthesia care to patients who may need extra attention because their surgery is difficult, unusual, or because a complication arises. Even if the anesthesiologist spends most of his time just taking care of his patient instead of just gassing him up, literally, ha ha ha, no pun intended, if the time of him taking care of said patient goes over Anthem's limit, they're going to be denied any reimbursement whatsoever. And this is where it gets really funny too. So even if you click to see the new policy change, it takes you to Blue Anthem's website, where haha, the article was retracted on December 5th. So there's no way of looking the new policy change, but thankfully I do have it with me right now, which we are going to look at. And here, fourth paragraph reads, "This is just the latest in a long line of appalling behavior by commercial health insurers looking to drive up their profits at the expense of patients and physicians providing essential care." And this was said by Donald E. Arnold, MD, Fetch. I don't even know what that says. It's a cynical money grab by Anthem designed to take advantage of the commitment anesthesiologists make thousands of times each day to provide their patients with expert, complete, and safe anesthesia care. This egregious policy breaks the trust between Anthem and its policyholders who expect their health insurer to pay physicians for the entirety of the care they need. Now, this article really spoke to me because you even have medical professionals calling Anthem out on their bullshit. And they even encourage people to at least contact their state insurance commissioner or state legislator right there. They also include this right here. In June 2024, Elevance Health, the corporate name of Anthem, reported a 24.12% increase in its over year-to-year net income to $2.3 billion and 24.29 increase in its year-over-year net profit margin. So this year they had a really good year, this 2024 until now. But going on to the other policy change that Anthem was going with. Now here in the 4 pages you just have disclaimers and guidelines for proper reimbursement. You can see that they'll go through certain guidelines or state guidelines. Here you can see what reimbursements are based upon. They also talk about anesthesia modifiers. I'm not really sure what those are. And here you get on the 3rd page, this is what they're going to be covering basically. The allowance calculation, the inclusion of catheter insertion and anesthesia administration. And now here comes the best part. Look, time units for neuraxial epidural anesthesia claims are reimbursed as follows. 1 unit each, 15 minutes of the time for the first 60 minutes. 1 unit each, additional 60 minutes of time. Yeah, even reading this personally, this already seems like a move, especially on their part. And it's really fucked up that it had to go this far for them to at least acknowledge from the backlash they were getting. I also got the letter that they sent to the people in charge of the policy change. So here they wrote this letter to the people in charge of the policy change on November 12th. And first paragraph reads, "On the behalf of 58,000 members of the American Society of Anesthesiology, ASA, I write to express our grave concern about the announced Anthem policy change to disregard well-established anesthesia time billing standards to Connecticut, Missouri, and New York. The Anthem policy provides no justification for paying for anesthesia services for only a portion of a patient's surgery. We request an immediate meeting with the Anthem officials who have authority over and who will hold accountability for this process policy change. ASA strongly opposes Anthem's proposed policy to arbitrarily withhold payments for documented anesthesia time. Not only is the use of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, physician work time valued, not accepted, reliable, or rational method for payment, it demonstrates Anthem's lack of knowledge regarding how anesthesia payments are made. The CMS physician work time was not developed nor intended to support reporting or payment for anesthesia services. Further, Anthem's statement with such policy change will not change industry standard coding requirements or American Society of Anesthesiologists' anesthesia's formula is grossly inaccurate. The authors of this proposed policy have misinterpreted established coding requirements and ASA standards." This is where the anesthesiologist pulls a big W, because even they're calling out Blue Anthem for being crooks and pieces of shit while doing this policy change, because they don't know about the way anesthesia is even built to begin with. Third paragraph reads, "We request an urgent meeting to discuss our concerns. Based upon our reading, this proposed change, Anthem's policy threatens to deny claims where anesthesia practice was accurately documented, time taken to perform the anesthesia service. In general, the policy would compel anesthesia groups to report that what Anthem will allow of the accurate clinical time. Anesthesia time is defined in both federal regulations and the CPT codebook, and these standards are accepted throughout healthcare. Anthem's new proposed policy is inconsistent with prevailing industry standards, regulations, and billing norms." Yeah, this is just them calling them out for cutting corners at this point, because they're not even going with the standards. Now, fourth paragraph reads, "We question how Anthem could propose paying for only a portion of anesthesia service needed by their customers. The policy does not contemplate that anesthesia code may apply to vastly different surgical procedures with corresponding wide variations in surgical times. The policy also betrays a diminished dedication to patient agency and safety a part of Anthem. In effect, if the patient has a surgery which lasts longer than the standards accepted by Anthem, Anthem has absolved themselves of responsibility to pay for anesthesia that is needed for the rest of the encounter." Oh my god. Yes, it's gone that bad that even medical practitioners know when the policy is going to fuck them over. They aren't just fucking over the customers, they're also fucking over the surgeons and anybody that's in the operating room. With this, they're going to be pressured at this point. They're going to either have to finish fast, and if that happens, that just increases the risk of there being an accident or a mistake. Now, last two this is just continuing. Likewise, the policy does not contemplate individual patient needs which are embedded within anesthesia time, including treatment of surgical complications during the course of the procedure. Such complications are not incorporated into the allocate base units but are accounted and paid for under long-standing payment regulations which incorporate time. The proposed Anthem policy reflects a significant disconnect between Anthem, its patients, and their needs." Thank you. This right there, right there. That's the bro just said the quiet part out loud. Anthem should rescind this inappropriate and misguided policy change immediately. We request a meeting by November 15th with Anthem officials who have the authority to revoke this policy change. Please contact. That's not for me. This right here is history, folks. We're watching history be made. Because even medical practitioners are calling out corrupt insurance companies for their unfair practices. It's just really, this is just one of the examples that they're doing. They planned on cutting down on anesthesia and they didn't. This isn't the first time Blue Anthem has done something like this, because they even did the same thing when it comes to daycare centers that help pay for the child's time being there. So back then they would cover an hour worth of the session of the daycare. So now they reduced it down to 45 minutes. And even the daycares had to at least adjust their timing and schedules, and that just creates a bigger inconvenience for the parent themselves, because those 15 minutes add up throughout time, honestly. It's pretty fucked up, honestly. I don't like the fact that a CEO had to die, but at the same time, I don't really knew I didn't even know the guy personally, and it's not like he's the one that pays my bills, so you're not gonna get much sympathy out of me, honestly. Plus, there's like bigger going on around the world, and I'm not gonna die over a billionaire dying. Other than that, we're just going to see what happens to the guy, his sentencing, court dates, and all of this and that. And just stick around to see what's going to happen. Hope you all had a good one, and take care.